Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Jennifer Dye. I'm a librarian at Detroit Public Library. We've had a very strong program with the League of Women Voters Detroit for several years now. We present on issues of concern to Michigan voters about 10 months of the year. And the issues are not just Michigan, but we do sometimes bring in Michigan or Detroit specific issues. You were brought into this program muted. Please put any questions into the chat. Ruth Coolwine will capture these questions and ask them at the end of the presentation. We might be able to allow people to unmute at the end to ask questions directly if time allows. We are recording this presentation and it will be made available on DPL's and the Detroit League's websites. Deborah Bunkley, who is acting president or co-president, I'm sorry, my notes are wrong, of the League of Women Voters Detroit, will speak briefly about the League and the Detroit group.
Hi, Deborah Bunkley, co-president. Sarah Wartz and I are co-presidents of the Detroit League. Just to let you know, everyone knows, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, encourages, informs, and active participation in government, and works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We educate, we advocate, and we empower. And we have a big program, so welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Since we started this program, we've partnered with PEN America several times. Most of these programs have been devoted to detecting and circumventing misinformation and disinformation. And while we have covered some of the material before, it seems like there are always more and scarier attacks on accepted reality. Tonight, we welcome PEN staffers Shannon Jankowski, Journalism and Disinformation Program Director, Kurt Sampsel, Disinformation and Community Engagement Senior Program Manager, and Henry Hicks, U.S. Free Expression Programs Coordinator. And I ask again that you put any questions in the chat. So Shannon?
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you all for having us here tonight. As Jennifer mentioned, I know that some of you may have come to presentations before that PEN had conducted by our former colleagues, Hannah Waltz and Nora Benavides. And so we're just thrilled to be back again because disinformation, sadly, does not seem to end. It just keeps evolving. And so I'm thrilled to be able to share some resources with you on how you can better equip yourselves in the light of the 2024 election, which I'm sure is an area where there will be much disinformation, sadly. But we're seeing it now in terms of the world crisis that's occurring, the rampant rise in disinformation. And it's important that we all understand how disinformation works, how purveyors of disinformation try to get this information out and spread it and amplify it, and what we can do to try to keep that in check and help ourselves and help our friends and families and communities to not be prey to disinformation. So to get started here, I'm going to share my screen and let's hope this works because I'm not always the most technologically savvy, which is kind of an odd thing for someone who is doing work around disinformation that I can't figure out how to share my screen. Okay.
and we forgot to test that. I'm sorry.
All right. Can you see my screen? Yes. Oh, I see
Yes.
Henry nodding. Thank you. All right. So today we're going to talk about tools for combating disinformation. As Jennifer noted, but I'll just wanted to just in case you're not familiar with PEN America, in case you didn't attend prior events that PEN America had here for the League of Women Voters, PEN America is a 100-plus-year-old organization that it stands at the intersection of literature and human rights to protect free expression in the United States and worldwide. And PEN America is one of many chapters. It's the largest chapter of PEN International. And so our focus at PEN America really is to support free expression, human rights, and literature here in the United States. And we unite writers and their allies to celebrate creative expression and defend the liberties that make it possible. And disinformation is a true threat to freedom of expression and a threat to human rights. So who we are, you can see us. That's me, Shannon. I'm the program director for journalism and disinformation, and I'm joined by my excellent colleagues, Kurt and Henry. I'll be sort of taking the lead throughout this presentation, but they will be chiming in and sharing examples from their own experiences and practices to make this as robust a conversation as possible. The focus of my program is on, as you can tell from the title, journalism and disinformation. So I work primarily with journalists, helping them to develop tools and resources and best practices so that they can be better equipped to detect disinformation and report on it in a way to help stop its spread. Kurt and Henry are very actively involved in creating a disinformation and community engagement program, which works with community leaders, with citizens, grassroots organizing, to really help outside of the context of journalism, although they also support community journalists, to help also empower people to be able to identify and spot disinformation and to be able to take proactive steps to combat it. So again, Kurt and Henry will be joining me throughout this conversation to chime in with points and to add on to what I will say, which inevitably is not going to be as robust as it will be with them here. So I'm really grateful that they were able to join me tonight. We've done a fair amount of research on disinformation at PEN America starting back in 2017. You can see some of the reports that we have created on these issues. It started back with Faking the News, which talked about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Truth on the Ballot pivoted towards talking about homegrown disinformation and domestic actors in trying to influence future elections. Hard News, a report that we did where we surveyed journalists and found the impact that disinformation was having on their work. And Speech in the Machine is a recent report that we just issued a couple of months ago that really talks about this new and emerging threat of generative AI and what this means for free expression, and particularly what it means for its potential to amplify the spread of mis and disinformation. So I know that in some of our prior presentations, we talked a little bit about the psychology of disinformation. So I'm not going to do too deep a dive on this, but I just want to put it out there because I think it's so important when we're thinking about disinformation and why it spreads and how it spreads, that we are conscious of what's going on within us psychologically and what purveyors of disinformation are seizing upon when they try to craft campaigns and programs to spread disinformation. So one of the first things that they're looking for, you'll notice whenever you've seen stories that have been debunked, oftentimes these false stories prey on heightened emotions, right? They'll try to produce a story that will make you outraged or draw on empathy, on trying to create a very tragic story. But all of these things are designed to just get us to be so quickly triggered emotionally that we turn off some of those logical parts of our brain that might go, well, wait a minute, let me take a step back. Like, this picture looks really horrifying, but can I say for sure that this picture was taken in the location it says it was taken at the time it was taken? We just see something really horrible and we want to say, oh my gosh, everyone, like, this is terrible, we have to do something about it. So disinformation really tries to trigger those heightened emotions in us to get us to not take that step back that we need to evaluate whether or not this information is credible. And it plays on confirmation bias. You know, we all have biases towards things that we already believe, things that we either implicitly or objectively believe to be true, or things that we want to be true. So, for example, I talked to a journalist who said that in her community that she serves was particularly hard hit by the opioid crisis, and are still the community is still suffering very much from the. Sorry, the recording distracted me a bit.
Sorry, I don't know why that happened, but I turned it on again.
No problem. But this community was hard hit by the opioid crisis, and purveyors of disinformation seized upon that early on when the COVID-19 vaccines were first being developed and introduced, and recognizing the fact that people in this community might have a bias against trusting big pharma for, decent reasons, and that they would have a bias towards maybe thinking, I'm not necessarily sure that if big pharma tells me something is okay, it's really okay. So people who were out trying to spread disinformation about the COVID-19 vaccine were able to prey on that confirmation bias and put out disinformation about side effects of the vaccine that frankly were just made up. There was no evidence that any of these things had happened. They had not been found in any kind of scientific lab or anything like that. It was just pushing out false information to deliberately try to plant distrust. And on a similar note, we have cognitive dissonance, which is sort of the opposite side of the confirmation bias coin. We are inclined to want to believe things that go along with our worldview. We also don't want to see things necessarily that would contradict that in a way that makes us uncomfortable. So, I think about if someone were choosing a car. Let's say I bought a new car because I had done all my research and I saw that that particular make and model of car was the most reliable. I really, really believed very strongly that this car and this make and model was the right one to choose. And then shortly after I buy it, there's a consumer report that comes out that actually says, no, this particular make and model of car actually performs really poorly. If I then see, the next day, someone coming out on social media and saying this consumer report was, bogus, and here's all the problems with their methodology, before I stop and take a step back and go, well, wait, okay, this person that says this consumer report is bogus, what is their rationale for this? I might be inclined to just be like, yeah, it is bogus. And let me share this with all my friends who just told me that I was stupid for buying that make and model of car. So you can tell I have to watch because I have a rapid response here. But that's another way in which disinformation can utilize our cognitive biases to try to get us to spread information that may not necessarily be true. Another thing that purveyors of disinformation will do is they can oftentimes, not in every case, but include a kernel of truth. You see this a lot in terms of maybe climate-based disinformation, where there'll be something early on in the story that is actually an accurate factual statement, but then it goes on to say things that really are true. But because we're reading and it sounds rational and I see facts and information that, yeah, that's true, I'm more inclined to then believe the things that come after it. And finally, there's something known as the illusory truth effect, which basically is the premise that, we're more inclined, our brains are more inclined to believe things when it doesn't take us that long to process them. And so if we have seen something enough times, if it's been repeated and shared by many people that we know, we're going to start to just believe that it must be true because we've seen it so many times and we've heard it so many times. Well, yeah, that must be true. So that is another reason why purveyors of disinformation are trying to use all these things like heightened emotions and confirmation bias to get us to very rapidly share information broadly, in order to sort of also push out that illusory truth effect and give people the sense that, well, everybody's saying this, so of course it must be true. So I think, sort of knowing that information can be really helpful. I know it's helpful for me now as I start to see things coming through on social media to take that moment and that step back, and before I just assume something is true because it sounds right, and it, makes me feel a certain way, really taking that step back and trying to do the due diligence and not get caught in some of those preconceived biases that would lead me to act without thinking. So that's sort of the first step here. I mean, we're going to get into some other tools, like, for example, tools that are available online that you can use to try to check information. But I think the first thing that is really critical anytime you're going to be able to fight against disinformation and have good media literacy skills is just, whatever you see, take that moment to pause and ask all the things that I was just talking about. Is this really eliciting a very strong emotion in me? Now, just because it elicits a strong emotion doesn't mean it's disinformation. Obviously, there are many things happening in the world that are true and are really happening that elicit very strong emotions in us. But, just sort of asking yourself that first question, okay, it's bringing up strong emotions. How well do I know and trust the source of the information? And we'll get into this a little bit later when we start talking about automated bots. But there's also, we certainly know there are lots of fraudulent news outlets that are claiming to be news outlets, but they're really, I know Hannah Waltz, our colleague, did a presentation for you in the past on what's known colloquially as pink slime journalism. A lot of people don't like that term, but essentially it's fraudulent news outlets trying to spread disinformation and make it look like they are credible news organizations. So how well do I know this? If this is coming from my local paper that I'm really confident in the quality of their journalism, I know from all of the things I've read that they are responsible, that they do thorough fact checking, that they correct any errors right away, I can feel more confident about this. But if it's like some person, even if my friends like shared something that they saw on social media, but I don't know who this person is who shared it, and I'm not sure where it came from, just kind of want to take that step back before I immediately say, oh, yes, this must be true, and now I'll forward it again. And also think about, could there be a person, a group, institutions, or even social media platforms that could benefit from the spread of false or misleading information around a topic? Sometimes we think about disinformation in the context of political actors, and certainly there can be political actors can benefit from spreading disinformation. But there's lots of different types of institutions and even the social media platforms themselves that can see the value in maybe not always checking everything first and sort of amplifying certain algorithms in order to get more hits, in order to get more ad revenue. So being critical and just taking that step back and thinking about who could benefit from this is important. And then asking yourself, could there be any other possible explanation? So Kurt's shared with me a story about, for example, if you are seeing a picture that is being posted on social media of election workers who are, according to the caption in the social media post, counting fake ballots after the supervisors of the counting have left. Well, that could actually be a real photo of real election workers at that location. And this is that kernel of truth effect, right? You could say, I actually know that ballot place. That's where I go to cast my ballot. I can tell that's it. Those are like real election workers in my community, and I see they're counting ballots. But just because the caption says they're counting fake ballots, could there be another possible explanation for what this is a picture of? Maybe it's workers counting real ballots. So again, like just trying to take that step back before you start into the next phase, which is really checking your facts. So here's where we're going to start to talk a little bit about what kind of tools and resources you can use besides just, questioning it. A great thing to do, and I don't know if any of you have tried to do this, it's known as lateral reading, but it's basically just doing something as simple as taking the facts of a story and putting it, the key takeaways. So I'm going to see, I wonder if I can do this and take you through this on my screen. I bet if I escape out of, I bet I can do this. You can still see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So if I go here, and I cheating a little bit here because I saw this when I was doing my research for this, but let's say there was a story on social media that Gretchen Whitmer, that in her car, someone found cocaine and child porn materials. So I'm going to say cocaine, child porn, Gretchen Whitmer, car. Okay. And then I'm going to type in hoax. Not hoax, hoax. And okay, that did not work. I actually did this before and it worked. So this is a bad example, but okay, I'm just going to do cocaine. Did I not put in car? Yeah, I did. Weird. Cocaine. Gretchen.
Shannon, we can see one of your windows, but I'm not sure it's the right window.
Oh, okay. Which window can you see?
We can see the one with your Google Slides and your Pan America calendar.
That's really weird. Okay, well, I'll do it on this one then. I opened it up in another browser, but can you see this?
Yes, that looks good.
Okay. Cocaine, car, hoax.
You have the Gretchen Whitmer's name misspelled. It's ER,
Oh,
not AR.
that's why it wasn't working. And that is why, yeah, that is very bad that I'm talking to folks in Michigan and I can't spell your governor's name right. All right. Now it explains why when I Googled this before, I was like, this didn't come up because you actually have to spell people's names right. Okay, so when I Google it now, I can see, oh, look, story about Gretchen Whitmer drug bust was fabricated. Fake news, Michigan governor found with cocaine porn. Okay, so like just a very easy, correctly spelled check like this on Google. I don't have to do anything more. I can see right now, PolitiFact, all of these things are telling me that was a fake story. And you know, if I'm still inclined to be like, well, I don't know, it sounds like something she would do. You know, I can actually click through and read all about like what were you know, what were some of the reasons how this was debunked. And I can get the full list of facts. So that's just one quick way to try to do the debunking. But let's say you did that. Let's say you Googled it and you spelled her name wrong like I did, and you didn't get the answer. So now you still are wondering, I want to check the facts on this. There are a number of fact-checking resources online, and you may have already used some of these. These are some of the ones that I tend to like the best. I find the first two, factcheck.org and PolitiFact. Now, PolitiFact is going to be focused on political issues primarily. Factcheck.org is focused more broadly. And, you know, Snopes and Washington Post Fact Checker, don't get me wrong, they're great resources as well. But one of the things I like about factcheck.org and about PolitiFact is the functionality they have in terms of being able to search these sites. So here on factcheck.org, I can do something as simple as, you know, search. I can just type in something I want to know about here. And then, you know, just hit the search button, and then any kinds of results that match that will come up. But one of the things I like about this, there are a whole host of topics. These are very common topics about where disinformation tends to surface around these individuals, and certainly in the lead up to the 2024 election, being able to quickly see any kind of disinformation related to our presidential candidates, extremely helpful. Health, COVID, immigration, climate change. You can browse by month. You can also go to SciCheck, which is really great. It's a part of the site that's focused exclusively on fact-checking scientific claims, whether that's scientific claims around climate change or around health or COVID. Here we have a page that's dedicated exclusively to the 2024 elections. So if you're hearing something in the news and you want to quickly be able to fact check it, you can go here, and it's sort of rounding up the most recent examples. There's a Spanish version, Debunking Viral Claims. So I feel like this site is particularly helpful in terms of being able to check out things pretty quickly and narrow in on the type of disinformation or the claim that you're basically looking to check. Another great site is PolitiFact. Again, this is going to be more focused on political issues, but one of the things I like about their site, look, this is stuff for cats, so this should tell you something about the fact that I have gone shopping recently for things for cats. So good to know, as this is being recorded for posterity. All right, I'm going to get more cat ads now. Anyway, here again for PolitiFact, the same thing, right? You can go and you can just enter in, you can just hit search, and you can, clearly I've searched for Kansas before, so you could just type in search results for Kansas. But you can also go and, like, again, here we've got all of our favorite political people who can be the subject of disinformation or sometimes purveyors of disinformation. We've got top media pundits. I can fact check what they've been saying lately. I can also look on popular issues, but I love this. We have state editions. So I can go and look and see what is happening right now in Michigan specific disinformation. When the site loads, just taking its sweet time. But again, we also have, PolitiFact has a truthometer, like as you can see over here. It talks about, they rate statements from true, as you can tell, mostly true. Pants on fire is basically the biggest lie ever. More cats, oh my God. I hope none of you people are dog people and you've just completely been like, I'm not watching anymore. Anyway, here you'll see, so there's sort of a roundup of different things that have been said in Michigan, and this is where I got the story about Gretchen Whitmer before, even though I didn't recall how to spell her name properly. But, again, we can see all of these things that have come up in social media, very trending types of things that went viral, I should say, on social media that have been analyzed and debunked on the site. And you know what? If some of these things were true, it would say so as well. So I feel like that's a really helpful resource for being able to narrow in on topics and on regions that are of particular interest to you. But again, you can always just go to their basic search functionality and type in the story and see if they put anything out on it yet. And so again, Snopes and Washington Post Fact Checker, similar. You can go to each of those and just search for things. But one of the things that I find is less helpful on those two sites is that they don't have some of those categories and drop downs that will allow you to more easily dig into things. You have to kind of do more of a search of your own. So then after you've checked the facts, so let's say you went through that whole process and you've just stumbled upon a story that, okay, I'm not seeing it showing up on any of these fact check sites. I ran the search with hoax and it didn't show up as being a hoax. So now what? Should I just accept it as true? I mean, if you, for example, if you go to PolitiFact and it says, you know, yes, this is true, then you know you're in a good space. But you know, you just nothing came up on it, or you don't feel too confident about it yet. The next thing to kind of think about, especially if this came through on social media, is you might want to think about, okay, how much do I trust this source? Or even if I trust the person who shared it on social media, where are they getting it from? And do I trust the source they got it from? So if this is coming from a social media account that you're not familiar with, you might want to take a look at it and just say, okay, let's look at this person. Let's look at their bio. Let's look at their username, their photo, try to get some information about maybe, you know, might they have an agenda that would be supportive of someone who might be trying to spread mis or disinformation, or who might be just have see that there could be a potential benefit for them in spreading this information. Another thing you can...
Excuse me, Shannon, we've
Yep.
had a request that you switch to presentation mode.
Oh, sure. I will happily do that. When here we go, slide. All right. So, you know, who do they follow? Do they frequently tag politicians or celebrities or public figures that might, you know, sort of indicate that they're trying to get this message out to a wide range of people, trying to maybe get this in front of the eyes of people who follow those people? And then, you know, a lot of mis and disinformation. You know, we talk a lot about bots, but, you know, to be clear, a lot of mis and disinformation is spread by real live people who are not bots, but some of it is spread by bots. And so to the extent that you think, you know, you looked at this person's account, things seem kind of fishy about it. Like they don't really say much on their bio. They just say, like, you know, I love America or something. They don't have any information that would really help you to know, you know, more about who they are. The account was recently created, but they have like thousands and thousands of followers. That's a little bit odd, unless they're Beyonce, which you would get thousands of followers within seconds. But you know, if it's most people, that wouldn't be the case. If they have lots of political, really highly political posts, kind of sensational posts, or they're frequently retweeting political actors, and if they have very minimal content about their personal life, bots, you know, so far, bots generally aren't making up information about, you know, so excited to go to my local pub and try this new brew, pumpkin spice, it's delicious. Maybe then you would know they were a bot. Sorry, I love pumpkin spice things, but not pumpkin spice beer. So anyway, you know, if you see this and it doesn't look like that this looks like maybe this isn't really a real person. One way that you can test for that, so sorry, now I have to go off of presentation mode again here because I want to take you to this website, is to go to Bot Sentinel. Bot Sentinel is a tool. Now, sadly, there used to be several tools that could help you with bot detection. Unfortunately, earlier this year, X, which used to be Twitter, changed its API policies. And as a result, some of the bot detection tools that were out there that used API from Twitter are now not able to access that information for free any longer. And in fact, it's not just that there's a nominal cost, the cost for them to be able to access the information they would need to run these tools is exorbitant. And these tools are mostly being run by nonprofit organizations, and they can't afford to do it anymore. But Bot Sentinel is still up and running. It has maybe not as much, some of the functionality isn't as strong as it used to be, but you can still use this tool and run someone's handle through this to try to get a sense of, well, could this possibly be a bot? So I'm actually going to cheat here and look at a Twitter handle that's listed down here as one that was recently added, Culture Force 1. All right, so I'm going to type in . 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1 here we go, analyze account. I'm going to type in culture wars 1. All right, so that person was normal. They're normal. So basically, Bot Sentinel ranks these accounts that are on X. It looks at the various different things that they've been tweeting, and it puts out a rating. So how much can I trust that particular source? So here, this person, this handle, what they're tweeting has come up to be within this normal range. And okay, so you said, oh, well, I saw that Culture Force 1 shared this on X, and they had information in their bio about like a little bit more about who they are, and they were posting about things they're doing in their local community, and they're coming up on Bot Sentinel as normal. That should give you much more confidence. You can also, if you wanted to know more about why Bot Sentinel thinks that this individual's activity falls within the normal range, you can click on view profile, and it's going to tell you a little bit more about the things that this person has been doing. It'll give you information as I scroll down here about what kinds of phrases they're typically using, hashtags, if they're using a lot of hashtags. But it will give you a sense of, like, for example, if this person were found to be disruptive, you might see some phrases on here that would kind of tip you off. Especially if you're seeing phrases that are often topics of disinformation, that can sort of help you. And you can do a deeper dive into, how many followers do they have? How many people are they following? When was their profile created? To give you more information about how trustworthy you think this source might be. So then you've gone through that. So let's say you're doing well, unlike me. All right, unlike me, you're doing well so far. And you have said, all right, I saw this thing shared on social media. It wasn't coming up as being fake on any of these fact check sites. This person doesn't, seem to be a bot. They're coming up. They have all the qualities that makes me think this could be a real account. Their activity level is normal on Bot Sentinel. Another thing you can think about, at this point you might be feeling confident, but if you're still doubtful, another thing that can be helpful to check is to do a bigger contextual scan of an image if there's an image that's been shared. So if you can click on the image, if you can expand it, if you can look to see if you can kind of zoom in on it, see if there's any time or date stamps. One of the things purveyors of disinformation love to do is put out images or video and claim that it just happened, and they're actually taking pictures that are very old, that happened in a completely different location, that were taken in a completely different location from where this event supposedly happened. So if you are being told that this is a photo live on the ground at the site of a storm that just went through, and then you're able to zoom in on it and see that there's actually a time and date stamp on the photo that says 2016, that's that's a bad sign. You can also look for geographical markers. Might be street signs, building names, a landmark. So if you're seeing something and they're saying this just happened in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and you are able to see the street sign, the building names around, going into Google Maps and just trying to put that into Google Maps and see what comes up, you might find that that particular street and that park and that building name don't exist in the location where the person is claiming that this event just happened. And then looking for, corroborating clues, like, the picture, there's rain. You can tell it's pouring down rain. Well, if someone is saying this just happened again in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, and I go and I look, it says it happened at 5 p.m. today, and I look and I check the weather report for 5 p.m. today, and it was, sunny and 75 in Prospect Park, that's going to make me suspicious. And you can also use other online tools to try to get more information around the origin of this particular photo. So here, for the last time, I'm going to get out of presentation mode and go through this. But there was Google reverse image search and TinEye are two reverse image searches that you can use that will give you some context around the origins of a photo. And I have an example photo. It's a photo, you'll see it here. I can just open it up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it actually. Can you see it right now? Can anyone see a photo on my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I will then, it'll show up when I run it through TinEye on here, but it's a photo of two sharks and they're swimming in this flooded area by an escalator. And in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian in 2022, this picture was going around on social media, and people were saying that there are sharks swimming around by the Fort Myers escalator. So a couple things, you could also just type in Fort Myers escalator on the escalator for the Fort Myers subway system. So you could type that into Google and find out that there actually isn't a Fort Myers subway station. So that would help you out right there. But let's say you didn't know that and you're like, oh my God, there are sharks in Fort Myers. This is horrible. But you're a little suspicious. So I'm going to go to images.google.com. This is a Google reverse image search. And I can click on this search by image icon. And I can either drag an image. So let's say, I had it here. You can do this on your phone too. You can go to your camera roll and upload something from your camera roll. When you're on a website, you can just kind of hold the picture and then it'll ask you if you want to copy that picture into your photo library. Then you can go to Google here and upload it. But I'm going to upload this picture. And what I'm going to see very quickly is that there's a lot of stories here about Union Station. What does this have to do? Union Station, Toronto? What does that have to do with Fort Myers, Florida already? I'm wondering what's going on with this. And I can click on any one of these stories and, find out here that this all was sort of popping up around flooding in Union Station a long time ago. Here's this. This is the same picture. And it's all about Union Station, which is not the Fort Myers escalator situation. So I'm already starting to get confused, and and I can look at all of these different stories and I can see that I think I have reason. I can click on any one of these to read more about it, but want to show you TinEye because I think that that really helps too, that tool. So if I put this same image into TinEye, there are really there's a great tool here where you can filter the image results. And here I can search by oldest. So if it's 2022 and I'm being told that this is a picture that was just taken in Fort Myers, this has been floating around on the internet since June 22nd, 2012. So I don't really think that it just happened in Fort Myers. You can play around with this. You can look at most changed. So you could see how this photo may have been manipulated over time. But anyway, the backstory behind this, oh, sorry, we have some profanity here. I will scroll away from that. But you can see, some of these stories are going back to 2017, 2013. if we scroll down further, there's images here. Here someone has shared, OMG, sharks, and here's the exact same picture with no sharks, right? So we can already tell that this is a picture that's been photoshopped. And these tools can help give us that context. So we are not going to assume that this happened, and we're not going to share it and proliferate the disinformation. So really, these are things that, I'm currently using, and that, anyone can use. None of us are going to be perfect. There will be times when, especially now with generative AI, it opens a whole new can of worms. Generative AI is able to produce very sophisticated images. It's going to get harder and harder. Like, I'm not sugarcoating this and saying, well, just put these things in this search engine and, and you're good, you just won't have any problems. This is an ongoing, evolving threat. But some of these tools are things that we can use to try to at least catch a good portion of the mis and disinformation that we're seeing out there, and be able to take that step back and not share it, not amplify it. And even then be on the lookout, like as you're searching and you're finding this and you're seeing news stories where this is being debunked. And let's say you have friends and family that have been out there sharing this story, being able to get out there on your social media or to talk to them, or saying like, hey, actually, this is what's going on. That can be really helpful in being able to stop the spread of the disinformation or mitigate the damage. So, I mean, again, here, amplify credible information. Anything that you find that is on a topic of importance to you, that you've checked it out to be credible, it's always great to be able to get more and more credible information out there, get it out there, especially on social media, so that the credible information is rising in the algorithms. Share news stories that debunk disinformation that may be going around in your families or friends or your network of friends. Support trusted, responsible news outlets. We know that there is a crisis in local news right now. And so to the extent that you have trusted local news sources in particular, always encourage people to subscribe to local news outlets that they trust. But at minimum, sharing their reporting as opposed to maybe other reporting can also help, increase their visibility and get more people knowing about the reliable reporting that they're doing. And then, using the information that you learn here to help others learn how to do these things too, and support your communities as you fight against the disinformation. Because, I hate to be cliche, but it really does take a village of people all working together to fight against this. So with that, I would love to open it up for questions, and I would also love to open it up to my colleagues if there's anything that they would like to add or to clarify in response to the comments. And I do apologize to everyone. As you can tell, I have been just focused on trying to figure out how to share my screen. And I've not been keeping up with the questions in the chat. So I will apologize that I haven't been answering them as we go, but would be happy to answer them now.
Shannon, this is Jennifer. We found it most useful to just have Ruth, who does a very great job, capture them, so you
Great.
don't have to during the presentation.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and for the first question, we're talking about strong emotions, and the person asking is wondering in particular about the Israeli-Hamas war that's just started, and seeing lots of videos from supporters of both sides that we're not sure are true. And there's a question about a specific resource for that topic, but also a sort of other idea of how quickly are fact checkers catching up to this? Like how quickly can you check something that's coming out in the news right away?
That's a great question. And Kurt, please also feel free to jump in here. But one of the things that my program is focused on is helping journalists with disinformation. And so we're trying to create tools to help them do that really quick analysis that needs to be done. And to your point, it can't be done in 5 seconds. So one of the things that we encourage journalists to do is to fight a little bit against the urge to break news, to get it out there as fast as possible. Obviously, you want people, especially if people are in danger, you do want to alert them to what is happening, but only putting out, we encourage them to only put out what they know for sure is true, what they have credible reporting, credible sources on the ground that they can verify and say, yes, this is true. So, you'll see a lot of places like, especially some of the larger news outlets that will have, but local have this too. They'll have live updates. So one of the things that we encourage them to do is like, use your live updates, but use them to just, piece by piece, put out the facts as you get them, so that you're not speculating on something. And so in that, time, people are getting information, but you're not putting out information that you haven't verified yet. In terms of like, will there be a source for getting more information about this conflict and being able to do that quick fact checking? I have no doubt that factcheck.org, PolitiFact, Snopes, and others are working probably right now on creating an issue page on that topic. Frankly, a little surprised to see that it hadn't popped up yet. But I do think, I would hope very soon, and you will see a topic for that if you go to one of those websites. Now, obviously, this is a really tough thing for journalists to manage. They're trying to get this information out, and they're also trying to verify its credibility. I would say, again, if you have in particular, and I'm not trying to throw any shade on large national outlets at all. I'm not saying that they're not responsible, but I think oftentimes we just know our local news outlets better because we've been hearing from them. We've been able to see their work in our local community. And so, I know what happened at the local events, and I can then look at the local news outlets and see how they're reporting on it, and I can get a greater sense. I don't necessarily know what happened in Seattle. So when I look at a national news feed, I don't necessarily know how well everyone is reporting on that event in Seattle, but I can get a better sense about how my local news is doing. So if you have local news outlets that you feel good about, that you feel like they really do their fact checking, definitely turn to them first. But it is a really, really tough issue. And, we are in a really difficult spot. And, and of course, that when I was alluding to the point about just because you have heightened emotions doesn't mean it's disinformation. I mean, this entire situation is producing very heightened emotions in all of us, and for good cause. There are there's true reporting out there that is causing us to have very heightened emotional responses. But then the disinformers can also seize on that. So I think just for right now, until you start seeing some of those pages, just keep checking back on factcheck.org, PolitiFact, and see at some point, you're laughing, I just sent them to Politico. It's a great news site, but keep checking to see when those resource pages come up, because I'm very confident they will. And just try to do the best that you can while also, taking care of yourself, because I recognize too, I just walked you through some examples on how to verify images, and they were silly. It was sharks. That, I think you could look at that picture and kind of get a sense that that wasn't real anyway. That probably wasn't going to be too close a call. And it was silly, and I could just pull it up for you. But these images that we're seeing are not silly. And even if some of those images might be doctored and manipulated, even if some of those images might be old, they're traumatic and terrible. And this is a really tough time. So, just again, looking to the news sources that you trust the most, and trying to just be careful about what you share and how you share it. And sorry, I know that's not a perfect answer at all. But Kurt, do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, I would just add briefly, I'm so glad, PF, that you, sorry, was it PF? Yes, PF, that you asked this question about the Israel-Hamas conflict, because, the fact is that there's a new kind of viral false claim every week, and there's a new disinformation topic emerging all the time. And I think it would be easy to get the impression that, you need to kind of keep up to date on what the new thing is in order to be able to fact check it and debunk it. But I think one of the best things about media literacy or news literacy as a practice is that its basic techniques are applicable in almost any situation. And the reason is because the techniques behind disinformation are basically static. They're basically used over and over again. And in fact, many of the techniques are techniques that were used by, war propagandists and public relations professionals 100 and 200 years ago. The techniques really aren't that different, even though, yes, the specific claims and the themes will vary based on, coming news stories. So a lot of the techniques that Shannon outlined, like checking your biases, working to understand the news source that you're seeing or the claim source that you're seeing, and to better understand it and put it in context. Those techniques are going to work whether we're talking about, Israel and Hamas, or the 2024 election, or, corruption charges or allegations or whatever. That's one of the best things I think about news literacy, is that the techniques can really be evergreen.
Yeah, and PF has another question sort of building on that. When using some of those techniques and trying to post about that or trying to share that with friends or family, as you encourage folks to do, to help check some of that disinformation, to help stop the spread of it, that person might then report them as spreading false information themselves, and then they have some trouble getting back into Facebook and Instagram accounts that they get blocked out of. Do you have any suggestions about how to approach family and friends with your fact checking, or perhaps other suggestions about how to navigate the Facebook and Instagram worlds for doing that, so that that doesn't happen as often?
I don't know if you've dealt with that one, Kurt, on dealing with whether or not the algorithm picks you up as someone who's spreading false information. I know that PEN America does have a resource about talking to friends and family about mis and disinformation. Yeah, and it can definitely be tricky, especially, if you have friends and family who are very committed to certain ideas. And, we're going into the cognitive dissonance again. If you're coming out and sharing information that confronts those that brings up cognitive dissonance for them. I think one of the things that, I try to do if I see that someone I know is sharing information, especially if I suspect that person, which luckily in most cases where it's happened to me, it's been a true suspicion that they really didn't mean harm. They saw it, they meant well, they thought it was true, they just didn't take the step back and check it. One of the things I've tried to do is, if I'm friends with them on social media, it's like maybe sending them a direct message and sharing what I found with them and saying, hey, I think I just noticed this. I think, you might not have caught that. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case you want to update your post. And I've actually had people reach back and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Thank you. I'm going to go do that. Right. And so then I didn't go and say, oh, you're lying, and then which you wouldn't say to a friend or family anyway, I don't think. But, I'm not commenting on their post and then saying, well, this is incorrect. And then making them feel bad. I think if you can have that conversation sort of privately with them. Now, if they come back to you and say, your stuff is fake, and, I still stand by what I say, I think we certainly would say, well, if you feel strongly about this and you want to ensure that the truth is getting out, posting that information yourself about what is true information. But it is difficult in these types of scenarios because we're in such a polarized environment. But just trying to take into consideration who this is, what their motives might be, using some of the psychological tools that we've been talking about, and thinking about maybe how were they manipulated into sharing this mis and disinformation, and seeing if you can use some of that knowledge to help alleviate some of the discomfort that might come from telling them that you have other information that suggests that what they're sharing is false. I don't know if you have other ideas, Kurt.
One thing that I'm thinking about, I would for a minute just totally bracket the question of Facebook and how it processes your posts, and flags them or whatever. Just on a more general level, there's a great deal of research indicating that, unfortunately, fact checks are actually a very ineffective way of getting people to give up false claims or false beliefs. Now, there's an important caveat with that. Shannon lifted up some really good fact-checking resources and websites, right? So the thing to be aware of with this is that for people who are curious, for people who are seeking out information, for people who are trying to find out what's true, going to fact-checking resources like that is very effective. Now, kind of like Shannon was suggesting, if people are not curious, and if they're sharing information just as a sort of statement of who they are or what their beliefs are, a reflection of where they already are in terms of their outlook, just kind of coming along and deploying a fact check in response to that, according to research, is usually ineffective. So what I would suggest you consider doing if you're in that situation where a friend or a family member is sharing information that you know to be inaccurate, is to not engage with the disinformation and to not kind of repost it and say, nope, this isn't true, here's the real thing. But instead to just start a brand new fresh post in which you share the correct information that is the kind of corollary or the mirror image of the thing that your friend or family member is posting. Because again, according to research, that will be more effective actually at spreading accurate information. People, when they're confronted, understandably, it's uncomfortable to have someone come along and say you're wrong. And a lot of times people just double down, they dig in their heels. So I would encourage you to consider just kind of avoiding that very tempting impulse to offer a correction, and instead just again start a brand new post and share information that you know to be accurate on that subject.
Thank you. So the next question is about information that's sent by mail. How can you check the credibility of organizations that send mailers, that send things, flyers or things that you think, like a printed material? Is there a way to check that easily?
Well, I'd be happy to kick this off and then hand it over to Shannon. But I wonder if the person asking this question in particular is thinking about political mailers. So, for instance, a lot of organizations will send mailings encouraging people to request an absentee ballot, for instance, or to register to vote. And of course, they oftentimes, delineate information about here's how to do that process. And a lot of times that's done with good intentions, trying to get people to be civically engaged and participate in elections. So I don't want to ascribe any negative intentions to those efforts. But the fact is that sometimes those organizations get the facts a little bit wrong. The reality is that election processes are really complicated, particularly in a state like Michigan, where the election administration level is highly decentralized, and it happens chiefly at the city or the town or the township level, as opposed to the county and the state level. So the details are even trickier in Michigan as compared to other states. So what I would encourage folks to do, if you're getting those mailings and they're coming from, not your town clerk or your city clerk's office, but instead from a organization, from a union, from advocacy or activist organization, I would encourage you to be curious about them and interested in them, but to go to your local election administration authority's website to actually take the action when it comes to requesting a ballot, registering to vote, finding a polling place. So take that mailer and be excited about it and take it as an encouragement to learn more information. But I would encourage you to go to an official source like your, again, city clerk's office, county election authority, or even the Michigan Secretary of State's office website. So that's just kind of my 2 cents to get you started with that. Would you add anything to that, Shannon?
No, I think that that sounds great. And of course, you know, just Googling, you know, the name of the organization that sent you the email to try to see if you can find out anything about whether they seem to be a legitimate organization or not. But beyond that, I think, you know, just exactly what Kurt said, to try to look to trusted sources that you already know you can trust for that information.
Yeah, and then the next question I'm going to read is from Judith Hammerle. I hope I said her last name correctly. There's a small group in my Michigan town beginning the process of starting a local newspaper. I'd love to share the process with readers. Are there any print-ready resources we can use?
So by share, I'm curious what I don't know if I understand.
Yeah, I wasn't super clear either. I wonder if Judith can clarify. Maybe we can allow her to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Share the process of figuring out what's true, you know, how to do that. Are there print ready things that we could put into the newspaper? It wouldn't be all one big thing at once because people's attention spans are so short. You know, but little bits of, want to know if that's true? Here's how you find out. That kind of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be really great. And there's some news outlets that are using like explainers, where if they're reporting on a particular topic, they have a little explainer that you can, you know, click on that tells you more information about how. It might be more information on a topic, like if it's an indictment hearings that are coming up, they might have a little explainer around, this is what an indictment is, this is how it works. Now, I think that's a separate question from what you're asking, which it sounds like you're asking, could you help your readers understand how they can do their own fact checking by using some of these tools? Is that right? I mean, because if that's what you're looking to do, I would say, you know, at Penn, we will be working on preparing resources for the community on how to use fact checking tools. We do have a site that we just went live with. It's specifically for journalists. It's a site to help journalists detect disinformation. So I don't know, it's written to be digested by journalists. So if you took information from those sources, you kind of have to reword it to make it information that was speaking to your readers as opposed to speaking to you as a journalist. But Kurt, do you know of like other sort of, maybe that would be more on point for what they're looking to do for the readers, about like websites or anyone who's put together some like quick tip sheets?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the topic. I would consider maybe looking for, you know, digestible, plain language overviews of information for a particular topic. One organization I'm a big fan of that I think does really good work on media literacy for kind of a general readership is the News Literacy Project. Their website is newslit.org. So for an audience of, like I said, just kind of more general news consumers, I think that would be a really good fit. And for journalists, I think that the resources that PEN America just recently launched would maybe be a good fit. That's what comes to my mind.
And if you want to find those resources, if you go to our website, pen.org, and go under the drop down. There's drop down under in issues drop down, and there's a issue disinformation. If you go to that page, you'll see a link to our journalism and disinformation resources.
Great. I think that's the end of the questions, at least the ones that are in the chat. I don't know if anyone else wants, if we have time still, if we want to raise hands or anything.
Excuse me, Ruth. PF brought up that they are trying to start a new thread, and they're still getting clamped down on. Would you like to ask it directly? I will give you permission to. No, I can't. I'm not seeing how to give you permission to chat. I don't know. Zoom keeps changing things.
Yeah, so PF said starting a new post is what I've been doing, and that's what Facebook, Instagram, Threads is locking down, is starting a new post.
So when you start the new post, are you, what I'm wondering, and Kurt, feel free to jump in on this, because I am not as familiar with, especially since the platforms are changing all the time in terms of how they're running their mis and disinformation sort of rules, or what they're saying they will and won't allow you to say. But I'm wondering if it's like, if you're putting in a brand new post and you're just putting out, maybe sharing an article that has true information about a topic, are they still telling you, saying that you can't post it? Or is it that you're commenting on something that maybe was already identified as misinformation, and they're not understanding that you're trying to correct the misinformation? I'm not really sure the context.
I am
Yeah.
a librarian, and people come to me fact checking. So people forward me things and I go, yeah, just no. And if I see multiple people sharing it, I create a new post and I say, I'm seeing many people posting this information that is actually not quite on target. Maybe you've seen it somewhere. Here is the process that I used to verify whether or not it was true. And then Facebook locks my account.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
Any ideas there?
yeah, here's what I would say about that. And I say this as someone who has not used Facebook for a little over 3 years. 3 years Facebook sober. Not to make light. But I think sometimes the social media platforms, their content moderation is just really, really sensitive for new emerging sensitive subjects. And I think that may be what you're running into. What I would encourage you to keep in mind is just the value of face-to-face and other kinds of communication. So if you're finding that Facebook or Instagram are not quite working sometimes, in order for you to get your message out, consider something like a billboard, or to meet that friend for coffee, or to send someone an article via email, or to print out an article, and hand it to the patron in the library, or something like that. I know that that's imperfect, but social media platforms also highly imperfect. So don't let them stop you by any means. That's what comes to my mind.
Yeah, and I see that you said that there's too many people and you can't have coffee with all of them. So like I get that, and you're doing such a great service to people who are coming to you with these questions and trying to get the word out there. I think, like Kurt said, just trying to be creative about thinking about other ways to get it out besides social media, whether it's like, I don't know if your library has a newsletter that it sends out, that maybe you could have a column in the newsletter of like, your weekly fact check, that, won't get, Facebook and Instagram can't do anything about that, or just any other kinds of ways to, you know, get that information out there, while it isn't going to reach as many people as quickly as it would on social media. You know, obviously your heart's in the right place here, and every bit that you do helps.
Right. I think that PF, unless you want to add some more, yeah, that might be the end of questions. Jennifer, if you want to.
It looks like it probably is. If someone else would like to ask something, feel free to go under reactions at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand. We can give a few more minutes here. I think we may have tired everyone out. It's annoying that this is something that we keep having to deal with, the Hydra. I thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Shannon and Kurt. Henry's put in a note that he had to leave early. We will have this recording up on the YouTube channel for the library in a few weeks. I cannot predict how long it will take. Here is the link for the YouTube channel. If you need more information or have a question about the recording being posted, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm flipping machine screens here and not doing it terribly well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. The library's accounts on Eventbrite have changed now so that if you follow one of our event postings, you should be able to just get the events that our branch has posted rather than getting deluged with all of the programs by all of the branches in the library. Let me see. Oh, that was that's the end of my notes. So thank you everyone for coming. And the league is lwvdetroit.org. I didn't put that in yet, but feel free to follow up. Yes, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, I thought I don't know how to use chat either, and I don't even know that anyone saw it, but I did put in our contact information. I couldn't find
it scrolls pretty fast sometimes.
Okay, well, at any rate, so if anyone's interested, we'd be happy to have you contact us. But I did have one little question, and this is, I wouldn't even ask us, but since it's at the very end, I am so unknowledgeable about these things. I don't really know if you tag somebody, what in the world that is and what you do with it. Why would it help or hinder?
So if you're on social media, let's say you're on X, which used to be called Twitter, and you are I'm writing a story and I'm saying, you know, go back to poor Gretchen Whitmer again, you know, and I say, hey, Gretchen Whitmer, and I tag her, you know, you need to do something about this problem in Detroit. Now people who follow her can see that she's been tagged. And so even if those people don't follow me, they have the potential of seeing this post anyway, because I tagged her, and she might respond to my post. Hopefully she doesn't respond to anything that silly, but like, let's say she does, and then she retweets it. Now it's going out to a much broader and saying like, I did do something about it. Here's what I did. And then now it's going out to an even bigger audience of people who follow her. And then I've just amplified the issue, and something like silly that I brought up, if other people who, and people, you know, maybe she doesn't engage with it, but people who are, you know, thinking what I said was wrong and that I shouldn't be calling out calling out the governor for this might retweet what I said and say, you know, this woman is crazy for saying that Governor Whitmer should have handled this. And she spelled her name wrong too. And then, you know, and then it like goes to a whole bunch of new people. So that's how tagging people can help to get that message amplified, because I might only have 35 followers, but I could get it out to
Thank you.
hundreds or thousands of people.
Thanks.
Well, our next program is Tuesday, November 14th. We're still finalizing details, but you feel free to get in touch with me or with the local league chapter. And if you follow on Eventbrite, the NAP branch, then you should get the announcement once we post it. Thank you very much, Shannon and Kurt. I'm sorry Henry had to leave early, but thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.